everyone. I'd like to welcome you to this session, and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Alice Payne. I work at the College of Legal Practice, and in Race Equality Week, we really wanted to do a panel conversation where we could listen and learn to different trainee experiences as ethnically diverse trainees from lots of different backgrounds. We are very, very lucky to have three very different trainees in terms of your experiences, your background, where you're studying in terms of the SQE, and where you're also training, obviously, to become a solicitor. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us, panelists. Thank you for listening. We will happily take questions from the chat bar. So if you would like to pop anything in as we talk, we do have a kind of rough format. We have lots of questions that you've already submitted that we've used to frame the conversation, but you're really welcome to add questions into the bar so we can make sure we answer what's kind of top of your mind. I hope this is quite a safe space for everyone to share and talk honestly about what they're either thinking or feeling as well. So really want to encourage a supportive conversation. So what we're going to do is probably run till about 7 o'clock. Closed captions you can switch on. If you have any issues around accessibility, just pop it again in the chat and I'll see if I can help. But you should also, we will record it, so you should be able to access a recording on YouTube after the event as well, that I'll send to people if they have any issues accessing it today. So the College of Legal Practice, if you don't know, we are a not-for-profit legal education provider. We're part of a group, and our parent company is based in Australia. So we're really passionate about increasing access to the legal profession and making our learning inclusive and making the profession inclusive. So quite a strong focus on equity and inclusion at the college. We obviously provide training for the SQE to become hopefully solicitors, and we try and really provide lots of personalised support to our students through lots of expert solicitors. We are also postgraduate, so we are accredited by the Office for Students, and we're able to offer master's programs and diploma programs as well. So that's the background for the college. And this week is Race Equality Week, so that's the timing around this event. But we do try and also throughout the year bring diverse range of experiences to different panel sessions and webinars that we do as well. So it's not just about this week, but we thought this was a good week, prompted by colleagues at Muslim Lawyer Hub. So thank you very much, Farzana, for reminding me that we did a meeting, a panel last year as well. So we will keep trying to do different panels that highlight some of the challenges facing some of the ethnically diverse colleagues in the legal profession. So enough about the college, enough about me and us. What I would really like to do now is to just allow the panelists to introduce themselves, just perhaps talk a little bit about your legal career and education to date, and then anything particular you'd like to share about why you want to be on this panel, or about race equality. So who wants to start? Farzana, do you want to start?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Farzana. I'm currently a trainee at Clyde & Co. I'm in my first seat of catastrophic injury and large loss. Previously, I've just completed the SQE, and then before that, I did an undergrad law degree. So quite fresh still of the trauma of the SQE. But glad kind of got through it. I did both the SQE and SQE2. 1 and 2 together, and then now come here. And then on the side, I'm the founder of Muslim Lawyers Hub, so that's just events specifically targeted at Muslims that are looking to get into the legal profession.
Thank you very much. Maab?
Hi everyone, my name is Maab. I've finished my training contract, but prior to that, my training contract was with Flex Legal. I did 3 different secondments, one at BMW, the other at Next 15, and the last at BASF here in Manchester. I did the LPC and also SQE2, and I didn't pass SQE2, so now I'm in a bit of a limbo about sitting SQE2 again. But that's just a little bit about my background.
Thank you. And Lashana?
Hi everyone, my name is Lashana. I'm a trainee solicitor at Acuity Law doing commercial litigation in my first seat, but I'm actually moving seats next month. So I'm in limbo of deciding what second C I'm going to do. So if anyone's got any recommendations on the call, that'd be lovely to hear as well. I did the undergraduate law degree at Cardiff University. I did 4 years. I did a placement year as well. So I was a paralegal in residential property, which is completely a 360 from going into commercial now, but it was a great experience. I graduated last year with a 2-1. And then prior to that, I just went to college, did A-levels. And then prior to that, I just went to secondary school and did GCSEs. A bit of what I did in each section, I think, when I was trying to mold my CV, it was more so not the grades, but what you were doing during your time at those establishments, at those educational places. So when I was at university, I did the Innocence Project, which is overturning guilty verdicts. And I was both a caseworker for that and a team leader. I worked at Support Through Court, which is basically family law. If you do the family law module, it's honestly the best experience you can get. I founded the Women in Law Society and co-founded the Commercial Awareness Society. I was also the first anti-racism officer at Cardiff University. And then I did a bit more, like I'm a part of Ladies of Law as well. I was part of the Neurodivergent Lawyer Project. But then if we take it back to college, I was on the Students' Union, working as the secretary, which was a great experience. Taking minutes in meetings at work, you know, that's basic experience on being a secretary, so it was great. And I did gold DV, silver DV, bronze DV. And let me tell you, as much as it's tough, it's worth it. And I love hiking. I'm one of those people that has a National Trust membership for $2.99. And I just go walking with my dogs and my partner. And then when I was at high school, I guess secondary school, I was the head girl and I was also on the student counselor program. So I think what molded my CV was just also all the extracurriculars that I did. But at the time, I wasn't doing it for my CV. It was just because purely enjoyment, and it was just a way to make new friends. And if anyone has any questions about the, I don't know, the elected modules that I decided to take at university, I'd love to delve into that. I love the ones that I chose in the end. And again, they don't have to be anything in relation to what you actually choose to practice in law when you end. And yeah, that's just a snippet about me. And why I wanted to be on the panel was just because it's really lovely to help the new generation and the aspiring lawyers that are coming through. And there is definitely a place for you in law. And my biggest piece of advice, as much as it feels really competitive to go into law, and it feels that you have to interview so much and you have to like really delve in and research the different firms, you've also got to interview them and they've also got to interview you. So make a pros and cons list if you have to, but don't always go for the first offer. That's my advice. If I know as much as you might see a contract and see a training contract offer, you're thinking yes, but you've got to make sure it's the right place for you.
Thank you. Thank you all for your introductions. That's really helpful. Well, we'll delve more into some of that, Lashana, definitely throughout the panel. Thank you. So I think what we'd like to focus on first is we had a few questions through around obviously recruitment as a trainee and your recruitment experiences, which I imagine will be quite different. So Farzana, would you like to talk about how you found your trainee placement and what your application process was like?
Yeah, mine was, I guess it's a bit different compared to applying just for the training contract. I initially applied for Clyde & Co.'s first year scheme. So that was a week of work experience followed by 9 months of mentoring. And then through that, it kind of fast tracks you. So you do the assessment centre directly for the vacation scheme. I already done an application for the first year scheme. So then I did the assessment centre. That was your interview, group discussion, and then a written task. This was quite a while ago, so I'm really trying to remember what I did do. Then we had the vacation scheme. You did another interview just to kind of say why you want to get the training contract, what you've learned during the vacation scheme, what you've picked up, some of the skills, what you found out about the firm, etc. And then you got your training contract, and now here I am.
She make it, you don't even make it sound easy. I'm sure it was not easy. Sana. So did you have any challenges along the way? Is there anything you found difficult?
I I think in terms of challenges for me, it was more representation. I found it really hard to actually see people in similar positions to me, or like someone at the firm that might be wearing a hijab, for example. And I think that kind of it just reinforced some comments I'd heard earlier on in my career about not actually being able to get into a legal career. Hence why I actually ended up doing so much just to try and get into the legal career. Um, and I do make it sound easy, I guess, now that you do say it, but it's just a lot of work. And I think I've blocked out anything negative about it and just tried to remember the positives. So that's why.
It sounds like, did you feel the pressure to work as harder than others, really hard at it? Do you think you
Yes.
put your pressure on yourself?
I think the first piece of advice I got when I started like looking into legal career was that you have to work harder than your other counterparts just because of the way you look and the way I guess your background is. So I think from the get-go, I was very much like I would do anything. Well, anything as in like, attend insight events, try and get in front of recruiters, get involved with loads of different things as well, outside of uni, inside of uni as well. Just because I didn't have them similar connections to what other people might have. Very much a first generation student as well. So as well as learning more about how you actually navigate university, I was navigating a career that's quite complicated actually in terms of how you get stuff done. But yeah, grateful for it all.
And how did you kind of help yourself stand out, do you think, in terms of your cover letter? I mean, did you ever talk about your ethnicity or your background, or did you was that something you kept over here, or did you bring it into the conversations or the discussions?
I think it did help me stand out actually in my interviews when they asked me certain questions about what I do, what makes me stand out. Again, for a diverse person anyway, it's like you do have different perspectives to things. The way I've learned and the way, I see the world is completely different to someone else. So I was able to bring that to it. And it also meant because I was getting in front of recruiters, I was asking questions. Again, that meant they at least knew that I was present and I was interested. So with Clyde and Co, when I was doing the interview for the vacation scheme, they already knew who I was just from the insight events that I'd attended, turn my cameras on for, etc. And then trying to get involved with networking as well. So when I was given the mentoring opportunity, just making the most of that opportunity, really trying to, schedule calls for every so often that the mentor was available for asking questions. And then the mentor I had wasn't actually from a diverse background. So trying to find other mentors who were from a similar background to myself and then trying to figure out how they actually got to where they are, what kind of challenges they faced, and then their advice as well, because I thought that was more relevant for me.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for sharing that. Maab, how about your experiences in terms of your route towards getting a trainee contract?
So my route was slightly different. I started off as a paralegal at Express Solicitors, which is a PI law firm here in Manchester. And I was in kind of the road traffic accident team. I was a paralegal for almost 2 years. And I was still applying for training contracts, but I found it really difficult to kind of get anywhere. I think the most I got, sorry about that, the most I got was my a vacation, almost getting a vacation scheme. So the last step, achievement, but I wasn't successful. So I was almost at a point of giving up. I kind of said to myself, I'm going to finish my LPC and I'm going to give myself an extra 2 years. And if I don't get a training contract, then the law is not for me. I'm not going to spend 10 years of my life, chasing after something that clearly seems to not be written for me. Maybe I'll be a paralegal for the rest of my life, or I'll, look into going into another career and use my legal background as a leverage. And one day I was on LinkedIn, procrastinating and scrolling, and I saw that Flex Legal had started their training contract scheme. And I'd been mutuals with the CEO, Mary Bosner, for quite a while. We went to similar events, and she kind of got to know me, and I got to know her on like a mutual acquaintance basis. So I'd messaged and asked if they're looking to come into Manchester because I didn't really have any desire to move to London. And she said they weren't. But after a couple of days, she messaged and said, well, if there's a possibility of you getting a training contract, would you be interested in moving to London? And I said, yeah, of course, like, why not? So through that, I was in the second cohort. The application process for my cohort is a lot different to Flex Legal application now. So at the time, it was an interview with Mary and Sophie Gould. And then we had to do a written assessment, 2 written assessments. And then I had another interview with Mary and Sophie. Once I was accepted as a trainee, I interviewed with the secondment placement companies. So I'd interviewed with BMW twice. And once I got it, then that kind of was the start of my training contract journey. And I'd moved over to Farnborough, and I was there for a year. And then I applied again to a different placement, and that was in London. And I applied for another placement, which is BASF, which was in Manchester. And that was just perfect for me because at the time I was getting married and my family's in Manchester. So it kind of all just fell perfectly.
Gosh, a lot of interviewing. So, Maab, how did you, I've got lots of questions here about tips around not necessarily finding placements, but securing placements, interviews, applications. What would you be saying to people who are listening? You've obviously done a lot of interviewing for trainee positions.
Yeah, so I'd say my number one tip is to sell yourself. I found that when I was first applying, I really didn't know how to sell the best aspects of myself to the interviewer. I was kind of very demure, if you want to use the word, about my achievements and the positives and the strengths that I have, and also how to use my my weaknesses as also a strength, because that is really an art. And just to try and be as confident as you can. So I was really insecure about the fact I didn't have a lot of legal experience, and this is when I was applying for paralegal roles. So what I did was really use the extracurricular activities that I had at university, and even my job working in a call center after graduating. You know, I thought I'm just in a call center, I'm answering calls all day, but there's so many skills that you're gaining as someone who's on the phone: professionalism, writing, listening, how to be empathetic to a client, how to deal with very irate clients, you know, how to multitask all at the same time. And those are vital skills that you need to have if you're going to be working in an office and if you're going to be a paralegal or a trainee or an associate. So I really just honed in on the experiences that I had, the skills that I had, and just practiced with myself. So I would turn Zoom on or FaceTime and I would just sell. And this is when interviews were mainly online, when we kind of had COVID. Little tip, I kind of had my answers to the most difficult questions to the side, and I'd kind of memorized them, but I did have them in bullet points just in case I do sort of forget or I start to stumble. And I created like a table for myself with all of the skills that I'd gained from every single extracurricular activity, job, hobby, and I kind of wrote them out and kind of wrote a little bit of sentences on how that applies to the paralegal role that I'm applying to, and I used that as a way to leverage and to sell myself to the interviewer.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Thank you. Gosh, lots of work. So, Lashana, you obviously talked about your career path. So if we kind of zoom in a little bit on your training contract application process with Acuity, what was that like?
So I started university in 2020. So it was literally just after COVID finished. And then there was that short period where they were like, you can go outside. And then when I got to university, they decided, no, you're not allowed outside. So for the whole of first year, and this is relevant to the training contract application, I promise, for the beginning of first year and the whole of it, to be honest, the entirety of it, I actually didn't know that you could apply for jobs at all. No one had told me. Like, I think you guys have also touched on it about being first generation students at university and not having the support and the networks. But I had no idea that you could be applying for jobs in first year. I didn't even know that apprenticeships existed when I was in college. So someone posted on LinkedIn, I think I went to one of the workshops online that said download LinkedIn. So I downloaded LinkedIn, saw that someone in my year group had got into a Magic Circle law firm and was a first year student. I was like, you can apply now. So I made a promise to myself that I was going to start applying to positions in second year. Second year rolls along. I've chosen my modules. I'm enjoying myself. I applied for some vacation schemes. I recommend only applying to less than 10. That's what I would say, because you've really got to know the firms and what skills they're looking for, etc. So I applied to a few firms, decided I want to do the vacation scheme route because for me, I want to interview that firm as much as they want me. I need to make sure that they're a good fit for me. So I think I got 4 offers for vacation schemes. I went to all of them in the summer. I went to Acuity Law's vacation scheme and I was blown away. I really enjoyed the culture of the firm. I really felt comfortable because I was really dreading the idea that I wouldn't fit in and imposter syndrome. I feel like I'm not good enough, like I can't fit in. But when I got there, all of that was eliminated. I felt like, oh, am I actually in a firm? This feels really comfortable. And then I sat for 2 weeks in the firm. So the vacation scheme is 2 weeks long. You do 1 week in a different department and you get to choose those departments. So I did the first week in real estate and I did the second week in commercial. And at the end of the 2 weeks, so during the 2 weeks, sorry, you do a variety of tasks, which are all being assessed, I guess, and they're being looked at and reviewed. Then at the end of the 2 weeks, you do a final interview with 2 partners and they're the clients and they give you an issue and they're experts in their field. And you're the solicitor. You're supposed to be a partner, so you're supposed to be well versed. Bearing in mind, I was a second year law student. I was thinking, I don't know what employment law is. That's not one of our modules. But I did a lot of research and they weren't necessarily looking for legal knowledge. They were looking for how well you applied yourself to the situation and how you came across to them. And I think you also touched on the different experiences you have, whether they be legal and non-legal. I didn't have any legal experience whatsoever, but I had worked in pubs, I had worked at McDonald's, I had worked at Starbucks, and all of those experiences made it so that I got to meet different people all the time. And when you're met with different people all the time, moody people in the morning wanting a coffee, or people throwing their chips at you, or like the really nice person that's like, pass it along to the person behind in the drive-through, you get quite well with dealing with different people and their moods and how to come across. And I think that really came across in my vacation scheme as well. And definitely in the final interview. So they told you that they'd probably be in touch after 2 weeks once you finish the final interview. I got a call an hour later. I was thinking, God, why are they calling me? And they told me that I'd been accepted. And yeah, that was the crux of how I managed to get the training contract. I was offered direct routes that would have took you straight to the assessment centre, but I asked if I could do the vacation scheme because I think going into the office, actually seeing whether you like it or not is really good. It's really beneficial because as much as a lot of people in the call might think law is definitely for them, until you get into a firm, I think you don't know. And it's really good to like get the experience. And so I delayed the training contract for 1 year because I did the placement year and I wanted a bit more experience before I started at the firm. But that was just ultimately my choice, but I could have started a year earlier. But I just thought I can do an integrated placement year, be a paralegal for a year. That's great experience because I didn't have prior legal experience, and then did that and then started the training contract last year in August. And I'm doing the SQE at the same time. I forgot to say that.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of those. I'm just going to have a little look at our questions here. I think we've probably covered most of the questions around recruitment as a trainee. So what I'd like to move on to is really to understand your day-to-day life as a trainee, which must vary an awful lot. So I guess thinking about describing what you do day to day as a trainee, maybe first of all, and maybe a couple of examples of maybe cases or clients that you could share just to highlight and bring to life what you're doing as a trainee. So maybe should I just keep going round? Farzana, you want to do this, but feel free to dip in and out if this sparks something else for you on the panel. But Farzana, what have you been up to? What have you been doing?
So it's been quite varied, to be honest. I'm currently around 5 months into my seat. The seat basically that I'm in is if someone's been injured, say at work, road traffic accidents, at buildings, and it's quite a large large injury, so it's likely to affect them for life, or something that's, that might have like disabled them, for example, or anything like that. So I'm working on cases like that. That involves then, say you're writing instructions to counsel, so for them to attend a hearing on your behalf, you're attending conferences with the client, so you might be taking witness statements, asking them questions about kind of, say, liability, you need more information, it might be early on into the case, so just finding out more information like that, attending CCMCs, so that's where budgets are set down for the case. Experts as well, so you'll find experts for different areas. So an orthopedic expert, you might need a psych expert. You look into different experts around the claimant and who the firm has worked with previously and has kept like a good relationship with them as well, and then put them forward to the client, and then draft instructions to them and kind of liaise with them in that process just to check their availability reports, etc. And then also I've had a good amount of communication with clients directly as well. So our clients are insurers. So we might advise them on, say, something's coming from the claimant, an offer's coming, or we want to make an offer. Then you set out some information to the client, why you think it's a good idea, why they should do it, and then they let you know if they want to or not. Similarly, we tend to do like updated reports every so often. So you might kind of write out what you think the value of the claim is, whether we should make an offer or not, whether it's a claim that's likely to settle or take the entire amount of time. So that's a big report that we can write then as well. So I've been drafting some of them as well. And then apart from that, I've tried to get involved with other initiatives as well. So I'm passionate about diversity and inclusion. So that was something that I wanted to get involved with basically from the onset. So I've been involved with the Clyde's Muslim group, so that's an internal group for Muslims. I've been involved with the gender equality group as well at work. So I'm a co-chair of the CMG and then just a member of the GECO group, so that's the gender equality group. Both of them, you're just planning events for, say, Ramadan, International Women's Day, World Hijab Day, various events like that. So I've been getting involved quite a bit with them as well, and then pro bono a little bit, just because there's only so many hours in the day. So I've been trying to
Yeah,
get
it
involved with some
does
pro
sound like
bono.
trainees get lots of different opportunities as well, on top of, I'm assuming, everything you do for your clients as well. But it also sounds like your core work, you've got a lot of client contact, which is good, because sometimes
Yeah,
you
I
hear that
wasn't
trainees
expecting
don't
it, to
always
be
get
honest.
that much client contact, and your first
Yeah,
as well. Yeah.
it's been a bit scary, to be honest, just being like, oh, I can just send an email to the client, no idea if it's right or wrong, but here we are. So
Yeah.
far, it's been good, so I think it will
Okay.
be so. But yeah.
And how has that varied to your thank you, Zana, to your experiences, Maab? Your trainee, presumably your trainee seats placements have been quite different.
Yes, so at BMW, I was actually in different seats because the team is quite large and they all work in different areas at BMW. So I did a seat in commercial, in financial services, but mainly the commercial side of financial services, in employment, in corporate, and then an underlying seat of litigation. So my day honestly just varies. I would be working on the litigation, so just updating the client BMW or just chasing the client from different departments within BMW for updates about disclosure, making sure that no one is deleting anything. Everyone's just like keeping the files where they're supposed to be, because once you start litigation, you're not allowed to, delete or move any files that are relevant to the litigation. But I was also working on contracts. I was drafting claim forms. I was drafting board minutes. I was attending board minutes. And then when I was at Next 15, which I'm a little biased, was my most favorite placement, because I was in advertising and social media and marketing. So for me, my day basically really depended on what our inbox was. So the trainees and the paralegals had a specified email address that the clients will send us any contracts they want us to review. So I would be reviewing influencer contracts. I would be drafting non-disclosure agreements. I would be drafting kind of like notices. So We had one where I think it was O2, and they wanted to run a flower making shop in Oxford Circus, and they wanted to take content. So I had to draft a notice to basically let the attendees know that this is what we'll be doing, and if they're okay with us basically filming them and then having it on our social media. And because I'm a nosy person, I love just being able to learn more about the influencer world and the marketing world. So it was really cool and interesting for me. And then with BASF, it was more of chemicals, so less exciting like marketing and advertising. But again, it was mainly corporate and commercial. So lots of non-disclosure agreements, commercial agreements, lots of drafting and researching. I would get the most random questions sometimes about whether this chemical can be used and what are the legal implications of having this chemical be sent to a different country and trade controls. And yeah, it was a lot of just time researching the most random yet specific questions ever. So that's kind of what the last 2 years for me have been like.
Wow, it's so different, isn't it? I forget until I do panels like this how diverse the legal sector is.
Yeah.
You speak to every single person and they're doing something different, aren't they? Very different from each other. It's great.
I think that's the power of in-house, because your legal, I guess your day-to-day really depends on the industry and the specific client. Whereas when I was in legal practice and I was a paralegal and it was for traffic accidents, my day was varied, but it was kind of similar. I kind of knew what the litigation process was going to be like. Whereas in-house, you're literally at the hands of your client and what they want you to do. So you could be, reviewing like a 50-page contract, or you could be researching if you can post a meme to a client's account.
Oh, that's really interesting. Wow. So Lashana, your trainee seat's probably been different again. So what do you do day to day in the seat you're currently in?
So last week, so I'm in commercial litigation, but I've actually dabbled in all the different litigation teams whilst I've been at Acuity, just because I've had capacity to be able to work under them. The way it works is a bit different. So I've been working quite closely with the partners as well. So I tend to get work straight from partners, which I know is a bit different at different firms. But if I'm in the office, they'll just come up to me and give me a piece of work, or they'll talk me through a case. Last week I just did disclosure, so that was going through emails and documents to see which were relevant to our case. So I think last week me and another trainee reviewed 40,000 documents over the space of 5 days. So it's a lot of documents, a lot of hours, and a lot of clicking relevant, not relevant, and making sure that they match the disclosure issues. So we had 25 disclosure issues, and it was making sure that a document was relevant to one of those, and if it wasn't, then it was not relevant. If you weren't sure, there's a button for not sure, but you've got to leave a comment on why you're not sure. The documents could be privileged, they could be confidential, and then you just click the relevant buttons, because we've got like a new software that we're using at the moment, which makes it a lot easier, because it used to be done on OneDrive and then you'd have to put them in different folders, and that was confusing in itself. But yeah, so last week, just disclosure. This week is a bit different. I attended a virtual CCMC, which again is just a cost budget conference to discuss like where budgets should be set. And in that, we had a judge, our counsel, our solicitors, and then the other side, but the other side was a litigant in person. So it wasn't anything that I had encountered before. I haven't had a litigant in person on the other side. So it was quite interesting to see the differences of how that worked. But again, as solicitors, we didn't have to address the judge. We didn't have to talk during that conference. So I was more of an observer, which was really interesting to see. And it was also interesting just to witness what barristers also did in those proceedings. So it was kind of a learning moment as well. And I did that yesterday.
Yeah, thank you. So obviously some of the questions are a little bit more about, as an ethnic minority, how you've found that being in the workplace as a trainee. So, I mean, Farzana, Lashana, maybe we'll talk amongst ourselves, Maab, dip in when you can, but, what has been your experience as a trainee with respect to your ethnicity?
I think in Wales as itself, the law firms aren't that diverse, so it's really hard to find representation. And find mentors. I'm still yet to find a mentor in Wales to like really talk to and hone in like what I want to achieve in the next 10 years, kind of say, because I think that's probably what I'd use a mentor for, and like how I would develop my own career. I've noticed that a lot of firms will say that they've got a certain culture, that they're doing certain things, but as I said earlier, it's nice to go in to those firms to see if they're actually doing those things. And I think a lot of firms also don't say that they're doing anything, and then you go there and they're actually doing a lot more. They're just not advertising that they are doing it.
Yeah. Farzana, what do you think? I mean, you've got lots of experience from your network as well.
For me, I mean, there was a couple of things I think that I was worried about, and they're topics that generally I do get questions about as well. One of them being is how much you're going to have to attend alcoholic events. So as a Muslim, we don't tend to attend alcohol-related events for religious reasons. So when I first joined the team, actually within the first week or so, I got invited to a drinks social, and this was quite new, so I don't think anyone knew. But anyways, so I just messaged the partner who emailed, just to say we're welcoming you, and another trainee that was joining the team as well with this event. So I kind of just messaged back politely just to say, for religious reasons, I can't join because there's likely an alcohol event. It was at a pub, so it wasn't kind of, a mix of different things. So I was like, that's not really possible for me. I wasn't really sure what the response was going to be, and I was quite terrified of it. It's quite scary to saying to partner in your first week that, you can't really actually go to an event to socialize. I had a really positive response. They ended up actually, so they had that event, and then they actually ended up organizing a lunch event for me instead. And again, loads of the team then went for that. And then kind of after that as well, I've generally found whenever they're welcoming anyone, it's always lunch rather than drinks. Even if there's any other drinks events, they'll always invite me just because they don't want to exclude, but they don't actually expect me to turn up because I know I probably won't. So I've had a really good experience with that. Same with some of the other work that I've been doing. So we did an Islamophobia Awareness Month panel. I had the people in my team, 2 partners, reach out to me saying that they weren't able to attend, but they actually told me why they weren't able to attend. So it wasn't just kind of an excuse. I had other members reach out to me as well, like we're really looking forward to attending, or if they had any questions, just asking me questions as well. I also wear an abaya as well as a scarf, so I'm very, very visibly Muslim. That was another thing I was a bit scared of again. Not so much the hijab because I've been wearing it much longer. The abaya a bit more because I didn't attend that many experiences in the firm, and when you're online, you can't tell I wear like a long dress, which is an abaya. But again, that's been quite welcome, and I've never felt like I was different to anyone else. So yeah, so far so good.
Yeah, no, it's good to hear. In terms of the questions, I'm just having a look. I don't know, Maab, please do just jump in if you want to. In terms of accommodating needs, I think particularly there was a question around Muslim prayer times and things like that, Farzana. Have you found that the firm has been quite accommodating to Ramadan, to Muslim prayer times, those kind of things for you?
Yeah, so I've not had Ramadan in my training contract yet, but I did have it during my vacation scheme. Again, the firm were quite aware that I was fasting. They didn't so we had socials that weren't really food related as much. When we did have a food social, it was basically during it I would have been breaking my fast, so they had some food on the side for me so I could break my fast. For prayers as well, I got asked the question of if I need any accommodations, and I just said, I need to pray during the day, and it varies how much I need to pray depending on what time it is. And I was just told I can go pray. I don't really need to tell anyone I need to pray, which would have been, it's not very nice to have to tell someone like 3 times a day that you need to go pray. So it's very much you get up, you go and pray. No one really cares essentially that you're going to do something. It's kind of like a break for you as well. They have a prayer space already, so I can essentially just use that. But I know people do have different experiences, so it's not always as positive, and I think it's about finding the right firm. So I really just want to emphasize that. Not everyone has it where you can just say you want to pray and then you go and pray. So yeah.
Yeah. Maab? Your experience has been quite varied.
Yeah, so I'd say 90% of the time, my experience has been positive. Haven't really had any issues in terms of what I wear. And for me, the only time where I guess my religion played a part in me leaving a firm was um, when I wasn't allowed to pray within the office. And that was changed quite suddenly because at first they were quite welcoming. I was given a room to pray in about three times a day for 15 minutes, which was way longer than I needed. So I thought, oh wow, they're really accommodating me. 15 minutes, that's nice. And then things just changed all of a sudden. It was just overnight. And it was really shocking for me, to be honest, because it was in an area of law that I was super interested in, which was employment. And it was a firm that I'd applied to about twice, and I didn't get the offer because I didn't have enough employment experience. So when I finally got the offer, I was so happy. And for it to then change like that with really no explanation other than if we allow you to pray, or if we, their word specifically was, if we allowed every single Muslim to pray within the office, we would have to shut down our business. And there's just not enough room or space, which was not true. They had a lot of space. And it was quite ironic because they work in employment, they specialize in employment, and I had mosques as clients. So for me, it was, you're making money off your Muslim clients, but you're not allowing your Muslim employees the right to pray within your office. That is absolutely enormous. So I made the decision to leave. Sorry, it's my daughter. I made that decision to leave, whereas my other colleagues decided that they didn't want to leave, and they'd been there way longer than I have. I'd only been there for about 4 months, and I was quite happy to leave. And I think they were quite shocked that I'd made that decision. But other than this specific experience, everything else has been absolutely amazing. No one has ever told me I couldn't pray. Um, Also, I stopped shaking hands with men a few years ago, and also I didn't really have any issues with that. With me working at 3 different organizations that are absolutely huge. No one has ever batted an eye or told me, well, why can't you shake my hand? They were really respectful. And I even got advice from my non-Muslim supervisor that, well, instead of maybe saying, like putting your hand on your chest and saying, sorry, I don't shake hands, why don't you just wave hello? That might be a much more friendlier way to reject someone. So yeah, I've had a great experience besides that one specific firm.
Okay, that's good to hear, isn't it? Some positive experiences, and except for your early experience.
Yeah.
Well done for making a stand there. In terms of, there's an interesting question we got that came through is, how does your background influence your approach to cases or advocacy? And I guess this depends on your work and what you're doing and who your clients are, if at all. Do you find that clients, do you find it in terms of clients of similar racial backgrounds? So I don't know, everyone looks through things in terms of a lens. So is there anything you think about your particular background, I guess, that influences the way in which you approach your practice and what you do as a trainee?
I think I'm a lot more empathetic and I'm a lot more open-minded, especially when I worked in road traffic accidents, because you have so many different clients of different backgrounds, different language levels, different experiences. I think for me as a asylum seeker and a refugee, and someone who's, came to this country under very difficult circumstances, I see the world very differently. And so when I get a client who, apologizes for not speaking English very well, or not being able to communicate with me exactly what they want in a completely different language, I kind of see them as family, because I know, my parents went through it, the aunties in my community have gone through it. And I just try to practice sort of that level of patience, because I kind of know what that feels like. So there's always a level of empathy for me and open-mindedness, and a kind of a thought of just stop, try and put yourself in their position before you come up with a judgment, because they're not what you expect them to be. I think that was more in like personal injury, and in my like in that area of law. But when it came to commercial and like in-house, because I didn't have any, there were mainly white organizations. The only interactions I'd had with other clients that maybe were of my similar background were in different departments, but I didn't really have any choice over that. But still, that level of empathy is always there.
Yeah, thank you. How about yourself, Lashana? Have you ever had a chance to reflect on it yet? Do you feel like that you bring something extra to the role, or a different perspective?
I think working in commercial litigation, I don't tend to meet a lot of clients with the same background as myself. So I'd say I'm definitely a lot more patient because of my own experiences, just like it's been touched on. But I think it really came out as support through court because a lot of the clients there that you deal with can't actually afford legal help. And because my father was killed in a road traffic accident when I was 9, and then I lived with my single mom. I think dealing with not having a lot of money and dealing with that firsthand helps you understand the clients, and it really makes you want to work harder for them. So you set loads of time aside because you want the best outcome for them. I think my background so far working in commercial has only really helped with like office culture and like trying to bring more awareness and education into the office. We recently in October had the Black History Month event, and there was like a conversation of what do we do, and I was like, can it not just be a celebration? I was like, we could just make it a celebration. I'll go to the shop, I'll get some Jamaican food, just to bring you all into like a, you know, an educational workshop about my culture. So I bought loads of fried chicken, dumplings, ackee and saltfish, like everything. And we brought in a professional footballer who was also of a similar background to myself to talk about his experiences and also his experience as a male. And I think that in itself helped their approach to clients as well, because I feel like sometimes you've got to help people understand your culture and your background, and it helps them and the way they approach clients as well. I think I'll probably get more exposure to clients in my next few seats, but I feel like the clients I have met, no, they haven't been of my background.
Yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. I think sometimes also some of the things you hear more about are things like religious observances and some of the more serious sides of people's religion and culture. And you don't hear about the amazing community and family and celebrations all the time. So I think those are really important. And it is obviously incredibly important when we do something around, say, Islamophobia, really important, you know, to really understand a lot of the more serious side of things and the unconscious bias that, you know, I might have or other people might have. But yeah, it's nice to be able to understand how people celebrate and share and enjoy being, you know, with their community. And Farzana, it sounds like you do quite a lot at Clyde & Co on that as well.
Yeah, I think mine's the same as Lashana. I don't have too much client contact just because of who our clients generally are.
Yeah.
I think the couple that I have had experiences where my background might have helped is where we've had, say, not necessarily within my team, but in other teams, if someone needs, like, say, someone who can speak Urdu to liaise with a witness or something, then we can provide support for that. Other than that, it's been more about sharing what my background is and what my religion is as well. And how that can play into the firm and how they can support us as well. So that might be, say, Ramadan's coming up, so sharing, so like Ramadan guidance of how the firm and supervisors can support Muslim employees during the time.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'd just like to invite the people watching to just pop any questions in the chat. We have got quite a few more that were sent through, but for those of you that are listening that's prompted anything, please do pop a question in for any of the panelists using the chat bar. We had an interesting question. Can race really have an impact on me becoming a lawyer that I would put out to any of all of you? So, I mean, you've actually talked about some of the positive impacts that possibly your race or background might have on you becoming a lawyer, but how are people feeling in terms of whether they feel that there's any discrimination out there? I guess that question is rooted a little bit in whether people are at a disadvantage because of their race or an advantage.
I think it's both an advantage and a disadvantage. You can twist it both ways. I think there is discrimination out there. I think it'd be naive to say that the world is a lovely place, because it isn't, and you will face discrimination. I can already say that you can be judged on your hair, which I have as well. Sometimes I wear my hair straight, sometimes it's curly, sometimes it's an afro, and I tend to find that the experiences I've had in life, it changes depending on what I look like as well. And again, that's just discrimination. I think as well, unconscious bias is a topic that does need to be talked about, because people will automatically have an opinion or a thought about you before they see you unconsciously, but it's just what people do. So I definitely think that plays a part, especially into training processes. For example, with interviews and advice on interviews, I had 2 male solicitors that was interviewing me, and my feedback was that I didn't showcase my personality enough. But again, is that because they didn't enjoy what I was talking about when I was actually discussing my personality, or was it the fact that it was nothing relatable to them? And I tend to find that sometimes personality tends to be what you can relate with the interviewer. So for example, the ones I've talked about Netflix on interview, and they found that relatable, but say other things that I might have talked about, they would not have found that relatable, but they might go, okay, she's quite confident to talk about stuff, and she's got like life experience and these skills, and these are transferable skills. And another interviewer might go, what on earth is she talking about? We don't want that in our firm. So it really is like, all I would say is there is discrimination out there, but I think your lived experience, your race, and all your background can be positive attributes that can support you in applying to a job. And I think as well, I think it was touched on, like how to sell yourself and your USPs. I think me being who I am, I think I add a lot of value to the office, and I think you'll add value to wherever you go. So use your shared experiences, your background, your experience, and just, if you can add value to somewhere, I think that's your USP.
Yeah, I like that. Thank you for sharing that. Farzana, what do you think in terms of how race can impact on someone becoming a lawyer?
I agree with Lashana. I think it's something we can't really ignore at all. There's no way you can say that it doesn't impact you on a negative basis as well. So we've talked about, the positives and how you can, sell yourself basically as a better person compared to your counterpart because of your background. There are biases, like even I've had in the past people tell me where they felt like they weren't able to wear a hijab when they went for an interview. They actually ended up taking it off and found that they ended up getting interview offers. They got a training contract when they were doing the exact same thing with a hijab and really, really struggling with it. And again, it kind of goes to show, it really depends who is interviewing you. Some people may be a bit more open, some people aren't. And I know I mentioned this before as well, it's really about finding the right firm for you. And that's not, for me anyway, it wasn't just about reading the website, attending insight events. It was about trying to find people within the firm from a similar background to you and seeing how they actually felt at the firm. Because a lot of the time, I've had this just through my network anyway, where a firm seems really, really great, and then I've spoken to someone at the firm and they've experienced Islamophobia and the firm did nothing about it, and it's just really shocking to hear, even though from just what you're reading about or the insight events you're attending, it seems like a really great firm. So I think it's really, really important to actually speak to people, if you can, that are at the firm that look similar to you. And if there's not really anyone at the firm that looks similar to you, then it's a question of, why they don't have that, especially when, we're such a diverse community in itself. It's always good to be the first one, but again, it's just how they would accept you, or, what your experience would be like there. I think that's all I've got to say on
Yeah,
that.
no, absolutely. Yeah, that's helpful. Thank you. We've had a question in. Have you ever met other ethnically diverse people in the profession who pull the ladder up from underneath them? I had an interaction recently where someone I thought could be a role model was not genuine about EDI. So I guess, yeah, I guess you can't assume that everyone, just because you're ethnically diverse, therefore you're you're necessarily, I suppose, any more. I think you probably are more empathetic, but you know, you obviously get a variety of different people wherever you go from lots of different backgrounds.
I
Has
think
anyone had that experience?
if it's okay, I
Yeah.
think with the phrase "pull up the ladder from underneath them,"
Yeah.
I think there is a lot of, from my perspective, there's a lot of like influencers that I've come across, like legal ones that really sell the legal profession, but then they're not, if you message them, they don't reply. And you're like, oh, but you're shouting about law. I need some support. And then they're not there. So I understand that, but I think from being in the position I am in now, I wouldn't ever turn away students if they wanted support, because at the end of the day, if you're in the profession, you just want more people to follow you. You just want more of us, so there's more representation. That, especially in South Wales, I would love more representation down here. Just because it really like helps everyone then feel really comfortable. And I noticed that, because I did have a question, like, why do a lot of the students tend to go to London or back to the Midlands? And I was like, well, from talking to some of the people I've interacted with, they just go back there because they lived there previously. So they're like, you know, it's a lot cheaper, I can just live with my parents, or it's because it's a lot more diverse in those areas. So you tend to feel more comfortable where there's more. So that's, but I think as well, with what you've touched on, with you don't want to be the first, I think I agree, you know, you really want to look into why there isn't anyone there. But also, you know, it doesn't, change isn't made until one person makes that move. And I think if you feel strong enough about, and you feel comfortable, I think why not be the first and just bring as many people as you can with you.
Yeah, that's so true. Thank you. Maab, do dip in if you have any thoughts yourself. How are you seeing the profession change, develop, your experiences?
Yeah, 100%. I think the industry is becoming a lot more diverse, and we're having these conversations like, you know, the one that we're having now, which is super important. And in terms of, you know, having people, I guess, backstab you or not helping you, like the older generation or someone who you think, you know, you should be more about EDI. I think we should maybe lower expectations a little bit, just and understand that we are still in a very competitive industry, and some people are just really out for themselves. And even though they are in a, I guess, higher position, and you would hope that they would, you know, pull you up as well, because the more of us we have, the better. Not everyone's going to think that way. Some people do have that crab in a bucket mentality, and you just need to find your people and not worry too much about those who don't care about anyone else but themselves, because there's more of us who care about the younger generation and ensuring that ED&I is actually in place within the industry than those who don't.
Yeah, I like that. Find your people. Another question. So did people at the firm ever ask you what's your background? Are they really interested to know of your background? And what was their reaction after you told them your background? Maab?
I've had clients ask me, they'll say, oh, well, you have a very weird accent. Where are you from? And I, you know, say, oh, yeah, I'm from Sudan. But, you know, when I learned English, I was more Americanized. And then I came to the UK and that fun stuff. And now it's a weird mixture. I did have a colleague ask me if I can speak Urdu, because we have a client who doesn't speak English. And I kind of just looked at her and I just squinted and I said, no, I don't speak Urdu. But good luck with finding someone. And I think it was at that point where I'm like, I know I don't look Pakistani for sure. But you know, I give it the benefit of the doubt. I've had that experience, but no one really asks. But if it's in the conversation and we're discussing about different backgrounds and stuff like that, or I'm speaking about like my culture, then I'll I'll let them know, but I haven't had anyone explicitly ask.
Yeah. What about you, Farzana?
I'm the same. I've never really had anyone ask me what my background is. I think it just comes out, and I'm quite vocal in terms of the religious part of it. I look very Muslim, so I don't think you can really doubt it as much. So, and then in terms of like Pakistani background, again, never really had anyone ask me about it. So I'm not sure what their reaction will be to it either. Generally, if someone's asked me if I speak Urdu or anything, it's very well phrased. So it'd be like, I don't want to assume, but do you speak Urdu? It's like, yeah, sure, I do.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because obviously Muslims are probably the most, no, actually, other religions are quite visual as well. I was going to say one of the most visual religions that people make an assumption, or people then it prompts them to ask you. I think people, from my perspective, most of the time, if you're asking with genuine interest and you're a colleague, I think maybe it's different. I don't know, it is different if it's a client, but you're genuinely interested in understanding and learning more about people, then it's actually people really quite don't mind sharing at all. And I'm quite glad that you're interested and you're asking, as long as you're asking in the right kind of way, I guess. And not assuming that someone, hasn't grown up here, or, you're making, as long as you're not making assumptions that really kind of stigmatize someone. I think most people tend to hopefully feel like it's a genuine, interested question if it comes from a good place. But
Is it okay to add something as
yeah,
well?
do Lashan, tell me if I'm wrong or right.
So I actually work at a Welsh law firm, and it was founded by people who lived in Wales and did the profession in Wales beforehand, and then they set their own firm up. So that's where the firm's at. But our clients tend to be Welsh speakers. We are based in Cardiff Central, and then majority of our colleagues are Welsh speakers. So one of the questions I got asked was, are you Welsh? Are you Welsh speaking? But that was genuinely because a lot of the people, if you walk in at 9 a.m., they're talking in Welsh. So they were just wondering, can she get involved? Does she know what we're saying? That
Yeah.
sort of thing. And I was like, oh no, I'm not Welsh. I did study here in Wales 4 years, but I'm from Birmingham. And then it just, I guess the conversation just carries on quite normally. But yeah, I have been asked outright if I'm Welsh, but I think that's just the assumption that because we're in Wales, are you Welsh? And I'm like, no. But Wales is a lovely place, and I feel like there are so many Welsh speaking people that I wasn't aware of.
Yeah, no, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you carry on in a different language and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
How do I engage? How do I do that? Thank you for that question. And we have one more. I take this as the last question, then maybe we can give some tips around getting work, because I feel like that's really high on people's agendas as well, and getting trainee placements. But could you just describe the work environment as a trainee solicitor in the UK? Is it as intense as it is in here in Toronto in Canada? Hello to you from Toronto. That's quite exciting. Is there extended working hours for research on cases, lawyers yelling at you to meet deadlines? So it sounds a little bit about pressure and work-life balance. Farzana, how do you find it here? How intense is it? I think that's the question.
I've not had anyone yell at me, to be honest, so far. In terms of work hours and extended work, the firm, well, I'm in a regional office. I'm not in London. So I know London can be a bit more intense. For Manchester, my office anyway, they're actually quite good with times. I know once I emailed my supervisor at 7 in the morning just because I randomly remembered something at that time. And she was a bit like, why are you on at this time? Just get off and get on with your life. And same if you stay on too late, they'll just be like, why are you still here? Rather than expecting you to actually stay longer. I think with your working hours, I mean, if you have, say, an urgent deadline to meet the next day, one, you can communicate it, but if there's no way it can be changed, you might end up staying a bit extra. I've never had to do, I think the latest I've ever done is 7. I've never done any later than that. I'm not sure if that changes any other seats. I know it can be quite seat dependent, what office you're in, what firm you're in, but so far it's been good.
Yeah, okay. How about you, Lashana? How hard do they work you at Acuity?
So we start at 9. Typically I tend to get in a bit earlier because there's free breakfast. So I just go in for breakfast because why not? Don't have to do it at home then. And then when everyone comes in at 9, we all finish at 5:30. Some people do tend to stay over if they want to, but as a trainee, there's never been any pressure to stay over after 5:30. I've never really had it. I've never experienced anyone yelling at me. I'm so sorry if you've experienced that. I tend to work from home 2 days a week as well, but it's firm policy that you can work from home 3 days, 2 days a week. But I really like the office environment. All I would say is that the work environment's really good at the firm I'm at. Everyone kind of leaves you alone, as long as if you need help, the support obviously, but you tend to just manage your own time. I would say though that because I'm doing the SQE at the same time, I get in early, eat my breakfast, but I'm also studying. So me and another trainee, we meet up at 7:30 and we study before working hours, then at 9, and then after work. Sorry, we work for our lunches as well sometimes. And then after work, we tend to do some work as well. But that's just so that we can manage our time, so that we can go home. We leave everything out in the office at work, and then I can have one day off on the weekend just so I can actually see friends, see family, that sort of thing as well.
Yeah, it's a whole nother conversation about studying whilst
Yeah.
working, isn't it? Gosh. And how about you, Maab? How intense were your placements?
I'd say they were quite intense, but in terms of the workload rather than the actual hours, with BMW they were a lot more conservative. I'd usually leave around 5:36. They didn't have that culture of, in the general counsel or upon the head and left you kind of stay. But there is also that underlying message of you can't really be the first one to leave, especially since I was the youngest, and not a lot, all of my colleagues were very established in their careers, like 10 years plus qualified. They've all worked in-house, they've all worked or trained in private practice in London. I think that sort of old mentality was kind of still there. I did have maybe 2 or 3 nights where I've had to work a little bit late. The worst was I think it was until 10 p.m., but mainly my job was just to be on the lookout for a specific email we needed from the law firm that's working for us. So I kind of felt bad for the trainees because, they were sending emails until like 2 or 3 in the morning. I didn't really have to do much. I just had to wait for that email. So I just had a movie on whilst my laptop was next to me. But this is not to say that it can't be intense. If you're working in a Magic Circle law firm in London, for sure your working hours are going to be very, very intense, especially if it's a transactional seat. But I think the regional law firms outside of London, we do tend to have a better work-life balance. And if you are in-house, it is generally known that you will have a better work-life balance.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. We should have had a trainee on from a firm, but they'd still be working right now, wouldn't they? As a London firm, they wouldn't have finished yet. So thank you so much. I'm just going to wrap up now by just asking you, perhaps if you could share, I mean, we always get obviously questions about how to secure those training contracts. If you could share 1 or 2 things that you think would really help people in terms of advice for applying for training contracts, but also any networks that you know of or any sources of support or mentoring that, because I know between you kind of know quite a few probably. So yeah, just a couple of tips, Farzana, around getting a training contract, but then also any sources of support, places that people can go to find networks, mentoring, that kind of thing.
Yeah, of course. In terms of tips, one of them, I think I've mentioned this before, is being quite visible. So for example, if you're attending an event, a lot of the time I find that people keep their cameras off. So just be that 1 or 2 people that turn their cameras on. If you can ask a question, and if you do that like 3 times, someone's going to remember your face, if not your name. And then when you show up for an interview, at least they know that you've already had that contact with the firm, and it's not just the first time you've turned up and you've done loads of research into the firm and then just found out loads about it, but you've actually took the time to attend their events, attend other events that they've done with other firms. I know I signed up to loads of like mailing lists, and then whenever I saw firm names of firms that I wanted to work at, I'd try and attend if I could, turn my camera on and ask questions if I had any. Other one would be, try and reach out to other people at them firms. So try to build your network if you can. I know, especially as first generation student, if you are, it can be hard. So if you can find someone that's willing to take out time to mentor you, to network with you. I know earlier we mentioned about people who are not really willing to help out in terms of DEI, but a lot of people are. So if you can find someone from maybe a similar background to you, or even if they're not, at least they're there to support you with the application process. They can review your CV or your application. In terms of places, Legal Cheek tends to do a lot of events with loads of different firms, in-house, I think, as well. Aspiring Solicitors are a really good one. I think they have a page where they have people from different firms as well that you can reach out to. That's quite a good one as well. They're the only two that I can think of as the main ones that I used.
And the Muslim lawyers have for all the
Yeah.
training contract deadlines.
I don't want to give myself free promo,
Farzana.
but yeah.
No, by all means do. Your training contract deadline posts are probably the best out of nearly all the ones I ever see, actually. So
yeah,
thank you for the
we
time
have that.
that you put into that. Lashana, how about from yourself? What would you advise people to do?
I would say that when you're drawing out all your experiences, everything, like all your skills, that's amazing. Make a list of all of those. But then what firms are looking for is how you apply that to the specific firm. So if they've got a job description, if they've got like a website of what their ethos is, what they stand for, make sure that those relate to the skills that you have. And if they don't, try and mesh them together. So if you're talking about your skills, drop in one of what they're looking for, because at the end of the day, that's their blueprint of what their ideal trainee is. Make sure that you fit that if you definitely want to go to that firm. I would definitely say, as has been touched on, networks, connections, it's all about the people and if there are people up there not trying to take the ladder away, definitely utilize them. Don't be scared to message people. I know people feel like LinkedIn can be like a not very nice place sometimes, especially when you're in your head about someone's doing so much more than me, or you just feel like, oh my gosh, there's too much going on. I feel like LinkedIn can actually be useful if you utilize it well. So if, I don't know, you message someone, you're going to get a reply if they're a bit lower down in the hierarchy of the firm, I think. You can go straight for a partner if you think they're going to reply to you. But I would definitely say start at paralegals, trainees, because I think they're more likely to respond in terms of, workloads and balance in time. I would say in all regional areas as a junior lawyers division, I'm part of the Cardiff and South East Wales one. But in every region there is a JLD. What they do is all newly qualified solicitors, associates, and then you've got trainee solicitors, paralegals, students are allowed to attend any of their events. And it's a great way to actually go in person and meet people at those firms that you want to apply for in a way that isn't too formal as well. You can just go to those events and we had an event at a pub the other week, and I think the students were so surprised that you could just have a beer with an associate, or you could just talk to them over that. Again, it's not all alcoholic events. We did a walk today for Time to Talk, and we just went for a walk around Butte Park, and we went to like a coffee shop where people have got refreshments afterwards if they wanted them. But it was just a way to just get some steps in and just talk to people as well. I would say yes, there's definitely JLD for connections. I would say that the Ladies of Law, I'm also part of Ladies of Law, that's really good. We've got our next event in Birmingham, but they're all across the UK. And again, most of the events are just networking. So we do a lot of you can come to different firms, offices. There's a lot of, events at establishments as well where you can just go and meet people. A lot of them, again, there's lots of lawyers there, all female. So if you don't feel comfortable being around a lot of males and females, you can just go to a female only kind of environment and just talk to different women. So again, that's a great way to utilize connections in like non-formal ways. And then I think again, there are I think you've touched on the aspiring lawyers. I actually didn't use Aspiring Solicitors, the formal website. I used Aspiring Solicitors Foundation, and they provide students with clothing, if they can't afford it. And because I couldn't afford workwear for my vacation schemes, they actually gave me a grant because I did an application. But I think people don't want to talk about that on like LinkedIn to the people, but stuff like having the correct shoes when you go to an office is really important. Having the correct like workwear, and it's not something that's talked about enough, but if you genuinely can't afford going to like H&M or Primark for the basics, just like me, you can go to Aspiring Sisters Foundation and they'll give you a grant. I think it was for Next, and there's some lovely clothes in Next, and you can apply for different amounts for that grant as well. So it's a great way to get your foot in the door, because I've heard horror stories of people turning up in trainers and then they're being overlooked for a training contract even though they're really competent. So
Yeah,
if you need support for clothing or anything like that, I think they offer like if you need like Uber or train tickets as well, they're really good for just like
and
helping you get there.
laptops and travel to SQE,
Yes,
and
laptops.
a 10% discount on our courses as well.
Yeah.
If anyone wants that, but I shouldn't be promoting that, they should.
But
They're one
it's
of
just
our
stuff that
partners. But
it's
there we
just
go.
yeah, it's just stuff like that because again, you might be on the call, but you've had a laptop for like 7 years that's nearly dying and you need a new one, but you can't
Yeah.
afford one. You can just apply to them and they'll happily, grant
Absolutely.
you one.
And they will grant it for SQE students, not just undergrads as well. So yeah, good recommendation, thank you. Just conscious of time, so just Maab, to last few words, please.
I'll keep it very short. I think sell yourself, and in terms of networking, make sure that you connect with the person on a human level first, rather than asking them all of the questions that you have in your mind so you can get a training contract. Because as trainees, sometimes you feel like you give, like all of the students just come to you and they take all of this information from you, but there's no connection when it comes to seeing them as a person. And you can ask them, have you seen Love Island, or have you seen what's been happening with TikTok and all of that fun stuff, where they feel like, okay, they actually care about me as a person rather than getting the information from me, and then scurrying off. And lastly, build a personal brand. It's really, really important to build a personal brand, whether it's through LinkedIn or through social media, or just without social media. As long as you know what sort of value you can bring to the firm, you'll be able to kind of go anywhere.
Yeah, thank you. Well, thank you all of you for sharing such helpful and honest insights. I hope everyone's found it helpful and interesting. Thank you so much for joining us. Please, I'm sure people won't mind you finding them on LinkedIn or on their various networks if you'd like to carry on any conversations. We do have various career resources on our website as well. And if you go to our YouTube channel, you'll see lots of previous webinars around getting work experience. I'm also conscious that there were quite a few questions about the SQE, which I haven't focused on this evening because that's a whole webinar in itself. So we do have quite a lot of previous and future webinars, obviously, about the SQE that you're welcome to join. But I really want to make sure we have the time to really understand all of your experiences as trainees. So yeah, thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.